Right, and I think there's other things to be considered. I think, that's what I was trying to say. And if my phone cuts out again, I'm sorry. I don't know why getting this, something's wrong with my phone. I guess everyone else is getting it good, but my phone's opposite. But, so, I was just trying to think of some other issues that are important. And I know you brought up the gun legislation. And since you're a hunter and a gun, Second Amendment advocate and all that kind of stuff, what do you feel about the differences between them? You don't think that there's a big deal, or what do you think?
Well, I don't think that there's going to be likely to be a huge change in the gun laws in Pennsylvania to the negative for gun owners, because simply the mix of our legislature is just not going to allow that to happen. So
I would agree.
And I think Wolf, frankly, has to do what Republicans do and Democrats do, which is throw red meat to their base. So he's talking tough on guns right now. And what he's going to say later is, I tried to get some legislation through for my, if he were to win, I tried to get some legislation through, but, the legislature wouldn't do it. So I'm still fighting for you guys. And then he's going to wink, wink, nod, nod, and be happy, because he's going to say on this, when he's campaigning in the Pennsylvania, Alabama area, he's going to be like, guys, I never really supported any of that legislation anyhow, so I'm glad it never made it to my desk. Which is the same thing that Corbett does, by the way. Don't let him fool you for a minute. When he's down campaigning in Philadelphia, he's all about sensible gun laws and sensible this, which is code for gun control. But he's not going to come out right and tell them down there that he's just giving them lip service. So everybody does it.
Yeah, every politician does it, and I guess it's just, I think you're right. I don't think much is going to probably change with that. But the other thing, the other thing I was thinking about is the minimum wage, which is something I think would change depending on who would get in there, change or not change, I guess. Because I know from what I read, it seems that Corbett wants to, leave it where it is, but Wolf wants to raise it to, I think it's like $10.10 an hour, something like that.
Raising the minimum wage is an interesting subject. It is right now the biggest thing out there for the Democrats. That's their big thing. We want to raise the minimum wage. There's some argument raising minimum wage boosts the economy, but let's talk about what a raising minimum wage really is. A raise in minimum wage is really a tax increase, and I'll explain it this way. Remember that you pay about 6% in FICA tax on your check, right? And when you work at this, when you work, you get a FICA tax, and that goes to Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. Well, the employer pays a similar one. So if we raise $2 an hour on the average minimum wage employee's check, right, all of a sudden we're picking up about 12 or 13 more cents an hour on FICA per hour. So all of a sudden it's a 26 cents. $2 raise in minimum wage would be 26-cent increase in the income for the FICA funds. At the same time, the state unemployment taxes go up, right? At the same time, the state withholding goes up. At the same time, workers' compensation funds go up. So, because remember, that's based on a rate per $100 spent. So, raising the minimum wage is really a great way to raise taxes without claiming to anybody that you tried to raise taxes, right? It's sort of like you could just say the price of milk will double and it's taxable, or some other taxable item. The cost of Coca-Cola is now double. Well, now they make double the tax revenue on it. Well, when you add $2 an hour to an $8 minimum wage and make it $10, that's like a 20% increase in taxes across the board on that worker. And a lot of union contracts are tied to the minimum wage and have a specific provision that says that should minimum wage go up X dollars, then everybody in the union contract's wage goes up by the same amount of dollars. So when you add in the union contracts and you add in the minimum wage, it's a de facto tax increase. And I think that's the real reason that they want to do it. At the end of the day, though, what they risk is if you make French fries and you have a guy making the French fries, the capitalization on the machine and the amortization of the cost starts to look better and better as the cost of the guy who flips the burgers goes up and mixes and drops the fries goes up. At some point, you automate it. And that's what they're going to wake up to. They're going to raise the minimum wage. And if you made it $15 like these other idiots want to make it with their McDonald's protests, then I guarantee you the McDonald's would buy machines because they already have machines that can do it. They just choose not to do it because the capitalization is so large versus the time value of the money.
Well, I wish that people, I just so wish that people would understand that more. I mean, it sounds great. Oh, yeah, I'm going to get more an hour, and everyone should get more so they can feed their families. But it's just not even nearly that simple. And, I mean, small businesses, just kind of being a little more simple, I guess, from what you just said, you raise minimum wage, well, then that means you can't have this other person work it. You can't hire another person, or you got to cut these hours, or,
or you have to charge more.
On your,
or you have to charge more. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You have to raise prices, and then everyone bitches about that, and then they don't want to come, and
or they accept it, but then the guy who got a raise now has just the same amount of buying power he had before, or worse, even less because of inflationary pressures. So here's what you have to remember. We have a fiat currency, okay? So we just all agree that a buck's worth a buck. But what's a buck really worth? Well, a buck might be worth, for 99 cents, I can get a watch at the Walmart, a little plastic one, right? I can get an order of fries. I could get a large Coke, maybe not both. I can take the same buck somewhere else and buy something. But at the end of the day, that buck is probably only worth, what somebody will give me in exchange for it. So if you take the price of a Ford Mustang and you bought it with silver in the cash, take what a Ford Mustang cost when it first came out and bought it with silver of cash equivalent, magically, in most years, you need the same weight in silver to get one Ford Mustang. Okay? Think about that. So in most years, you need the same amount of silver, and especially if you average the price of silver, because there's some fluctuation in it. But we'll just talk about that return to value of silver over time, that line you could draw through the middle. If you look at that, in many years, the cost of a Ford Mustang translates roughly to the commodity value of silver. And you compare other commodities across the board, you start to realize that they really haven't changed greatly in relationship of cost to one another, unless some big efficiency was discovered in their mining or extraction or production. Right. And efficiencies have risen across all industries and extraction such that we don't see these huge swings. So here's my point. My point in this is the only way you create value and wealth is to lower energy inputs to do the same thing, or figure out how to do something with less other inputs in terms of resource or time. And that's what increases efficiencies and increases wealth at the end of the day. Increasing people's wages. We could give everybody $1 million right now. Just give everybody in America $1 million. I can tell you when you went to McDonald's the day after that, Big Macs would no longer cost $5, right? They would be $500 because everybody's got $1 million. And the only way you're going to keep people working there, right, is to pay them a better wage because they're going to go live off their $1 million. You're going to have problems there. But more importantly, the market will bear it. McDonald's charges what it does because it can make a profit. But they don't go back and go, we don't want to make too much of a profit. If somebody came in and said, hey, now that everybody got $1 million from the federal government, we've done some studies, and we'll sell half as many Big Macs at $500 a piece as we did at $5 a piece, but we're going to make, a whole hell of a lot more money. Well, that's what they would do. They would raise the price, and everybody would raise their prices. And I'm being silly to point out that anytime you inflate money into the economy, even if it's just a little bit here and a little bit there, it all works its way around and eventually levels back out. Now, monetary policy allows us to sometimes pump money in an edge here, give somebody a break there, with the idea of cheating the economy a little bit and pushing it in a certain direction, knowing that it doesn't all inflate or deflate at the same rate, and that we can push people's priorities into real estate, for instance, by giving them tax deductions on their home mortgage interest, that we can give grants to first-time home buyers in the form of federal guarantees on their loans, et cetera, to try to increase home ownership, if in fact that's our goal. We can give tax breaks to large corporations to build giant facilities in our state simply because nobody wants to work there otherwise. So we can do lots of things like that. but they really don't solve the problem at the end of the day. And Lucinda, we got another caller with us.
No. Okay.
Caller 2.
Carl, buddy, what's going on, man?
Hey, Don, you're alive.
Yeah, how you doing, man?
Good, man. A lot of people were wondering if you were still alive. That's interesting. I'll have to tell people now.
I'm like the Eric Pine of North Carolina.
I figured it was just your sister or your or wife or whatever she is, probably both in North Carolina, posting on your Facebook page as you.
Hey, I had to call, man, because, you're giving an awful lot of opinion and you're making it sound like they're facts, but they're really just opinions, Carl. You haven't really given any precedent or example of, how, there are places in Europe where the minimum wage is $20 an hour and their Big Macs are not $500.
No, their Big Macs are not $500. But the government...
They're successful systems.
No, and wait, let's back that up for a second. But on the other hand, their tax rates are like as close to 60 or 65%. So your spendable income is much less, even though you're making a much higher wage. Now, on the other hand, the government provides a lot of services that our government doesn't provide. So their economy, the whole economy is rejiggered. So to compare raising the minimum wage, apples and oranges... I guarantee you, if you went to their economy and gave everybody 1 million rubles or 1 million Deutschmarks or 1 million Swiss francs or whatever they happen to be using, or euros, as the case may be, it would warp their economy as well. But
here's the difference. Like a lot of your Republican friends like to cry about the black people living off the system. But if the employers pay their employees more, that's more like the employers subsidizing the employees rather than us taxpayers subsidizing the employees. For example, like Walmart or McDonald's, who their employees have to have food stamps because they're not paid enough to even be able to eat.
Wasn't there a black president who gave them a free pass on Obamacare? I forget who that was.
Yeah, you see a lot of that on Fox News and stuff like that. But I'm not.
Remember, McDonald's and Walmart were exempted from Obamacare. Don't forget that. That was part of the deal to get them to approve it.
It's really wrong to care. The white guy came up with the plan.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How are employers supposed to just automatically just pay their employees more?
Okay, somebody's going to have to take a pay cut.
Hold on, Don, hold on.
No, somebody has to take a pay cut. It's a bad economy. Somebody has to take a pay cut. Why does it have to be me, the poorest of the poor? Why can't it be the rich people taking a little bit of a pay cut?
Let me finish what I'm saying, okay?
Okay, all right.
I'm talking about, like, if you do it with big companies, you have to do it with small companies, right? Small businesses.
Why? Why do you have to do that?
Well, that's an interesting question. Some people have tried to say that minimum wages should only apply to employers, say, with more than a certain number of employees. That runs into some constitutional issues. It's sort of like treating one person unequally, since corporations are people these days.
Well, I think it levels the playing field more than skews it.
But let me back up for a second, because Lucinda has a good point, which is, and Don, I understand that there are certainly corporations where there's gazillions of dollars flowing. But here's the other little problem, and I whenever somebody starts talking about the big, giant, evil corporations, remember who owns most of the shares in the big, giant, evil corporations are, I don't know, the California Retirement Fund, the Pennsylvania Retirement, Pension Fund, the At the end of the day, a lot of your stock beneficiaries of these evil corporations, the people who are benefiting from it, are actually the middle class and the lower class, because all that money is government money. Who owns that? These are all like state funds and pension funds. Now, don't get me wrong, there's hedge funds and stuff, but the real money, if you look at what Kelk and the Pennsylvania pension, the kinds of billions that those guys push into hedge funds and into stock market, you can give AT&T a haircut, and McDonald's a haircut, and all those big corporations a haircut. And then what they're going to do is pay their stockholders less, which is going to push the stock down. And then we're going to get this bill in Harrisburg where they go, well, we were thinking we were going to have an 8% rate of return on our pension fund over the next decade, but based on the way the stock market's performing due to the new haircut we created, it's going to be 6%, so the legislature needs to push more money in. So it's not a simple linear question. On the other hand, I understand the idea that people should be paid a fair wage for what they do. And
but here's the thing. Like, what exactly, and I don't mean to say this, what is the fair wage? If you're standing, and I'm not belittling anyone, I did these jobs, if you're standing